So much has happened since my last video, and I thought I should maybe take a moment to try and explain a little bit of how the name Princess of Freedom found me. Around 1999, I began a painting portfolio while sitting very alone in an apartment in Naples, Florida. And it was around October 1999. I did not have many friends my age. I hadn't lived in Naples for 2 years. I had moved back to Boston. Done a lot of things in Boston, from getting the Toll House chocolate chip cookie named the Massachusetts State Cookie. I worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the training division, and I produced what was my first independent film called Hung Jury. But my father was concerned for my safety and made me come back to Florida, which was very quiet at the time. And I had a lot of media attention. He wanted me to escape. Naples was very quiet, not on the map. Okay, so flash forward from August 1999, when I relocated, to about October. Alone in a room with a bag of paints and some canvas, I was really just trying to remain optimistic. And there were many challenging things, one of which very much feeling very alone in the area. So I somewhat prayed for inspiration. In my first painting, I was just looking around the room, and I decided to paint a light bulb. It was a very uninspired painting, shall we say. And then my next painting, I painted my own handprints, painted them blue, and stamped them on a canvas that I had painted with red thick stripes. So it became red, white, and blue, somewhat American flag-ish, and I named it Does the Banner Yet Wave? You can see it on princeoffreedom.net or princeoffreedom.com, Prints, like handprints. And from there, a portfolio began. I painted another painting with some of my fingerprints and handprints, real palms. I turned into palm trees, and Sally Fields, flowers. Anyway, for years I started traveling the country, painting other people's hands into works of art that were meant to embody what a person did to celebrate their freedom. That's one of the reasons they were called the Prince of Freedom. They also, back in Naples, around 2005 maybe, excuse my little dog here, he wants some attention. So where was I before Louis interrupted? I was talking about around 2005, after I had been painting these Prince of Freedom paintings for a while, I organized a community-wide contest, and I selected some old charitable organizations that had sort of become forgotten about, like Palm our historic home in Naples, even though it was only about 90 something years old at the time. Being from Boston, which is much older, I like history, and I believe we need to preserve our history so that we can appreciate all the advancements we have. If we don't know where we came from, we tend to forget a lot of things, but we also don't appreciate where we're going and how far we've come. So that was one organization. I chose Big Brothers Big Sisters because I was asked to help them, and they're a great organization. Friends of the Library was also a great organization, but it needed help. It hadn't been as popular as it should be, and also a friend of mine was on the board. My friend Heather, I believe, was treasurer at the time. And organizations like the Garden of Hope and Courage were mere ideas on paper, and so I adopted that one also to try and raise awareness for its future existence. And it is now a beautiful garden on the grounds of what was NCH Hospital. Now it's the Baker Hospital downtown, still part of Naples Community Hospital. But when I first moved here, that was the only hospital, and now there are several different hospital options. But anyway, it's a beautiful outside garden, so that if you're a visitor to people who are in the hospital, you can go. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice speaking of hospitals. You could go sit outside, be surrounded by the beauty of nature, or if you're a patient in the hospital, if your doctor allows, you can be wheeled outside for some fresh air. 1 year after the garden was built, my mom was in the hospital. Maybe it was a knee replacement, or I think it was. She's been in several times, broken femur 3 different times, several other injuries, but I think it was her knee replacement years ago. And also Easter time, I organized friends of ours to meet us in the garden, and I brought a hat for my mom and for myself, and my dad was there. We had a beautiful Easter dinner right outside on the grounds of Naples Community Hospital, but it's a beautiful garden right now. So other organizations that I matched my Prince of Freedoms to were Neighborhood Health Clinic, Grace Place. Anyway, there were several. There were about a dozen. And so I organized the contest that anybody who became a member of this organization or volunteer got entered into the contest. But if you bought a limited edition print of the original that I had matched to it, you got entered twice. So I was trying to raise money for each organization, which was going to get 20% of the proceeds from my limited edition prints of the Prince of Freedom. And Essential Art was getting 40%. So then the party after the whole promotion to see who the winner was, and the winner was going to get a boat package from Freedom Boat Club. It was going to be announced at the art show at International College. International College then got a donation of $10 million So that's what I did with the Prince of Freedom and the limited edition prints for the Prince of Freedom. So the Prince of Freedom evolved from my handprint paintings and to painting other people's hands and fingers into works of art that are meant to embody what a person is and what they do to celebrate their freedom. And some of the paintings were like this one, based on time and place, and you can see Easter theme. I'm showing this one. It's around Easter time. But this was painted about 20 years ago. Yes. In fact, on the back of some of them, I sometimes write dates or what was going on. So one of my cousins surprised us, came to visit, and his new wife and baby came to visit. So the baby's footprint actually made the tail of the bunny, but all of the fingerprints that are the Easter eggs are fingerprints of young ladies who were at the Peace Center for Girls. And I was on the board of the Junior Women at the time, and we were supposed to host an Easter program. Many people were supposed to help, but very few showed up. So I ended up having to do the Easter program. I got the Easter little bags and filled with goodies for the children. But because I also had been doing this portfolio, I had paints, I had supplies, I did a special painting with them, and they were thrilled to be part of it. Some of them you can see it's little sparkle paint, so I tried to gear it toward, you know, the young ladies. They're really children is what they are, and but very special. So I told them they were good eggs. And this is called, what is this called? I think it's Juniors Set the Pace for Easter. You can see a lot of them on fineartamerica.com under my name, my real name, or you can see a lot of them on princeoffreedom.com or .net. So that's one example. Another one was also a holiday theme. It was a Thanksgiving dinner here in my home, and I had painted the canvas red before anyone arrived, so it was just a red canvas. And I explained the concept to all of the dinner guests that they had to pick if they wanted to be a pilgrim, a Native American, or a turkey. And my Uncle Mike, some of you might know Michael Collins, he was the first to volunteer to have his hand painted, but he wanted to be a turkey. So I put him in the center, and then it just sort of evened out over the course of the evening. About half of the people wanted to be pilgrims, half wanted to be Native Americans. That's my dad. I turned into the chief with the headdress, and my mom is the female Native with the same color but not as many feathers, which I learned about Native Americans. Now, forgive me if some people think it's some sort of cultural appropriation or inappropriate, but it was meant to harken back to innocent times with, you know, turning turkeys into, or handprints into turkeys, and again, the somewhat, you know, juvenile concept of Thanksgiving, but the deeper context, it's why the background is red, because I do like to believe we've all evolved the bloodshed and the history and the background to wanting, you know, to come together in peace. And I do believe that's the innocent interpretation, but also the real one, like come together, share abundance, and learn to live together. No more bloodshed, and we remember our loved ones who are no longer with us. So that's another example of my Prince of Freedom. During the pandemic lockdown, I should add this, My Country 'Tis of Thee is what it's called. I matched to Home Base, which provides free counseling for military members and their families in honor of my Uncle Mike, who was military. My dad, also military. Dad volunteered to serve during the Korean War. John Urban wanted to be a pilgrim because he would always tell everyone he's from Plymouth, Massachusetts, where our forefathers came from. He wanted, like the Pilgrims, he wanted to be a pilgrim, but he's representing giving a flower to Mary Walsh, who was also from the same area. But John loved giving flowers to the ladies in real life. Let's see over here, there's another member of the military. Oh, so John was World War II naval officer, and Howard, I'm looking at this upside down and in reverse, but he was a Vietnam veteran, so he's holding a little musket. That's me holding the Bible. My aunt Ellie, cousin Julie. Anyhow, lots of family. That's my Uncle John and his wife Betty. Anyhow, I matched this to Home Base. Prints are still available. 20% goes to Home Base, 40% goes to Essential Art, and it's a great program. You can look that up, homebase.org and essentialart.org. You can see there's great work. They're not all holiday themed. Some are just, again, what meant to represent what a person does with their freedom. This handprint is actually belongs to someone I met at his own art show. He was a black and white photographer, and one of his favorite pieces was this black and white swan photograph. It was beautiful. I asked if I could paint his hands into my portfolio, and I wanted him to have his hand flat down against the water line. That was how I was envisioning to do it, but he did it on a slant, so I had to re-envision my whole way I was going to paint this swan, but I think it came out rather nicely, if I do say so myself. This one actually glows in the dark a little, and you can see there's a shadow also made with his handprint. He's a black and white photographer, but this, the ocean shimmers and glow in the dark, and the moon does also. It's kind of special in its own way. It's called Wait a Second Swan Song, because we had to redo the concept a little. Some of them I like to have a little humor with life, like this one and the Wait a Second Swan Song. This is called Kentucky Fried, an altered state, and this was my friend Charles's handprint, who was also a military member, sadly no longer alive, but he introduced me to Papa John, and I painted this while waiting for Papa John to show up to let me paint his hand. And that's a whole long other story for another day, perhaps. This one here is a growing legacy. The bottom handprints, if you can see inside that green outline, they're bluish green handprints. Can you see that better? Those handprints belong to my mother. They make up the bottom leaves, and then the upper leaves are my handprints, as are the rose itself are made with my handprints. I made this on New Year's Day. In what year was it? It's on the canvas. But New Year's Day they play the Rose Bowl. So the Rose Bowl was playing, kind of made me think to paint this, but it's a growing legacy because my mom and I are in the same sorority, and I am therefore technically considered her legacy. And the symbol of our philanthropic side of our sorority is the Rose McGill Fund, and so 20% of these proceeds go to the Rose McGill Fund, which helps sisters, you know, with all sorts of challenges we all face at different times. So that is my Prince of Freedom example. But then during the pandemic lockdown, not only did I match the image to Homebase to sell those prints and raise money, but I started a vegan line of skincare, and you can see the handprint logo. That handprint comes from my children's book, Creating Freedom Rocks, and I published that in 2010 in memory of the second friend I made when I moved to Naples, named Alice Nash. We all called her Sandy. She was also a member of the military, served in World War II. Grateful she chose to study art after the war and got me involved with a lot of different artists and art programs. And so Creating Freedom Rocks started a scholarship fund in her memory. When I started the vegan skincare line, I used the handprint logo, and then I was trying to come up with a name for an LLC as a for-profit corporation, even though my proceeds were originally trying to help my nonprofit. I really need to focus on creating a business to generate more revenue, not just for myself, but to replenish the scholarship funds and a lot of the funding that I was supposed to be getting. You know, after my dad died and John died, and my dad died in 18, John died in 19, and then the lockdown in 2020, and the world went sideways. But my dear friend that I met when he was the vice president of Houghton Mifflin, and they pursued me to publish the book version of the film that I made in 1999. We are still friends, we still chat, and he's the one who told me I should be the Princess of Freedom as my new business name, to go with the Prince of Freedom. So now you know.